Okay, and, okay. We will do the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Wyatt, could you lead us?
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so now for the adoption of the agenda. Okay, any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. 2.0 Student Achievement. 2.1 Roles and Responsibilities of School Counselors. Dr. Volkemer.
Thank you, President Medina. Board, based on your request, we've prepared a presentation for you this evening on the roles and responsibility of our counselors. We were having a little bit of a discussion the other day on how many counselors we have in the district, and it's north of 150 when you add up all of our elementary, middle school, and high school counselors. So they play a significant role in the operations of the district and our ability to meet particular outcomes. And so Dr. Perez, our new Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, you'll still be new for a while, has two of her team members here, and they're going to present to you on the roles and responsibilities of school counselors. Dr. Perez.
Thank you. So we're going to share, the goal of our presentation this evening is to provide some information, give an update, and share what currently our counselors are working on, the goals that they have, and then next steps and directionality for the division with relationship to how they're supporting school sites and the support that's also being provided to the counselors to best build their capacity to provide that support. So at this time, I am very pleased to introduce Jamie Allen and Raul Pedraza, who will be sharing information with you guys. This is their day-to-day work, and they do so with pride in serving our students, and I'm excited to have them share this information with you this evening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Perez, and thank you, Mr. Volkemer, as well, for identifying the school counselor as a vital role in our educational team. That was our intro. School counselors are very vital to the educational process, so I'm just going to jump right in and tell you about the 3 domains that we operate in. Every school counselor is trained to design their school counseling programs around these 3 domains, that being academic, career, and social emotional development. We understand as school counselors that those are not separate. They're very much intertwined, and one relates to the other. The graphic on the left of your presentation is our Ask a National model and what their suggestion is regarding how a school counselor spends their time. As you can see, 80% of a school counselor's time is spent in delivery. That could be spent in indirect or direct delivery with students or for students. 20% of that time is in building the foundation of our school counseling programs, the focus, management of, and then the accountability of that. And so we're constantly measuring the effectiveness of that delivery. We are in the midst of a paradigm shift from the common belief that people have regarding the guidance counselor versus what we're moving into towards the 21st century and what the school counselor's role is. You'll see on the left what some of the previous perceptions are of what the school counselor's role is, and on the right you'll see what we're moving towards. And that really is a more proactive, planned, and purposed approach to school counseling. It's very much more comprehensive, and it moves from seeing the counselor as an individual to what the program and systematizing that. We see school counselors as being an integral role to the educational team. We actively contribute to the school site, and we also propel students forward based on their strengths. One of the biggest differences here is that we are moving towards serving all students and then focusing not only on the services that this counseling program provides, but also on the effectiveness and what those student outcomes are. So one of the questions that we ask is, how are students different based on the school counseling program? We went ahead and listed some of the duties that would fall within each domain. Going back to that first slide, we work within those 3 domains. So we have listed here for you some of the things that school counselors do in terms of academic development. The big idea with this is that our comprehensive school counseling programs really maximize students' ability to learn. And that's our goal in terms of providing academic support for students. We will, as you'll see, there's a trend, that top line where it says deliver and facilitate core curriculum. Our core curriculum falls within all 3 domains, and that really is when the counselor goes in to educate staff and students. We deliver lessons within the classroom that incorporate, they could include strategy, best practices, social skills, things of that nature. One of the things that we're adding for next year that we're excited to pilot at Symardino High School is our Siembra program. And the goal of that program is really to be more intentional, more proactive with how we identify students.
I missed the name of the program. What's the name?
Siembra, and it's listed there on an icon in the bottom of that slide, Siembra.
It's Spanish for seed?
Yes.
Siembra, estas cosas,
To sow and to harvest is how I believe they list it on the program. Yes, thank you for that, Ms. Medina. This is just one of the tools that we're piloting next year that's going to aid counselors in supporting that academic domain. So we just wanted to highlight that as one of the tools that we're going to use. And what it's going to do is really limit the amount of managerial tasks that counselors have to do and help us to identify students that are bound for post-secondary ed, college and career, but also help us to identify students that might be at risk.
Is it a program? Is it a training?
It's a program.
Okay, it's a
It
program.
is a program. We're piloting that at Seminardino High School. We do have counselors and admin on board with that, and we'll have more to report out on that as the year progresses.
Madam President,
Madam
Yes,
President.
Mr. Tillman?
do we have any tools that assess or give students suggestions about career areas they will be good at? Because, you know, I have a son that's graduated from high school, and, you know, he asked him what he want to do, and just, I don't know. And, you know, he may be going to UC Riverside, and it's going to cost a lot of money, and I'm thinking, all this money and you don't know, it's just, you know, to me, I know, like when they go to the Air Force, they give them a test and they say, here's the areas you're good at, and here's some things the direction you might want to go. Do we do anything like that?
We do have those. That would be in our next domain, if
What's
I
it
can get
called?
the slides back up.
What is it called?
We've had various programs throughout the years. We've had, I can't even recall some of the names, but we have career interest inventories is what you're calling about. So we do have sites that will employ career interest inventories that are based around student strengths, and then based on student interest and student strengths,
So
then
just-
it'll kind of give you an
just-
idea of what you would be
But
good
just
at.
from a practical perspective, I have a son who's a senior, and say he's at Cajon High School, and he tells me, I don't know what I want to do. And what can I tell him to tell his counselor for them to give him this assessment?
The actual name of the program
How
that
else
we
would I know?
currently use?
Yeah, how else will I know?
Well, part of what a counselor does in individual student planning is we're going to ask solution-focused questions around that. So we're going to ask you, what are your interests? What are your abilities? What are you going to do at? We're going to do part of that in our individual student planning already. But we do work very closely with our career techs as well that will
So
provide.
question for you. After you do that, do you have a paper you hand them and say, here are the things that you're good at?
Yes, we do have a tool that does that.
So let me ask another question. What percentage of our seniors actually take part in that?
So that's one of the goals that we're moving towards, is making sure that our comprehensive counseling programs provide services for all students. So every student's going to get
I hear what you're saying,
everything.
but I'm talking about
Yeah.
right now, what percentage of our seniors get that?
The goal is all.
Mr. Tillman, we'd be happy to gather some data and bring that information back to you.
And that's important, because if I find out the number's 2% versus 70%, then I know what we need to do in order to beef it up. Because I think it's very important. I think it would help a lot of parents if we put a little more emphasis in that area, especially that senior year, to say, here you are, you're taking all these classes, you're taking in all these extracurricular stuff, and based on this assessment, this is something that we think you have strength in. And I think that really gives the students more confidence in deciding what their majors are going to be and the type of work they might end up doing. Without that, they really don't have a way of assessing that. So if you guys, Dr. Wolford, could give me the information about how many of our seniors right now participate in something like that, and what the costs are if we wanted to beef that up.
I've got a
Perfect.
note to follow up on that.
Madam
Okay, and I know there's another board comment, Dr. Flores. And then
Yes,
also, if we have, after Dr. Flores, if we have any other questions, I know that they just barely started and they have a lot more to talk about,
Right.
so then.
I just wanted to thank you for organizing all this. This is really, really good, and it lays out all the responsibilities. And like Mr. Tillman says, it's really important that, we know, and because we want our kids to be successful, and we know that you have a big load, very big load in terms of doing these things. And this is a good plan. I'm aware of Moreno Valley's Dr. Volkemer, I think you guys should really check into it, because they have a program called Teachers as Counselors. So you guys, as counselors, identify kids that need that extra help, but then our teachers, their teachers, are given certain load of kids to follow up, to track that are that are their students. And so that makes it even more viable because they see them every day, whereas you don't see them every day. So it doesn't mean they take away your job. It just means they support what you're doing. And I think that's a very viable program. I don't remember the name of it. I think it's BARR, B-A-R-R, but I'm not sure. But we could find out what it is.
We-
But it's
we have heard
very,
that program before.
very successful. Yeah. Do you know about programs like that?
We have heard about that, and we're actually actively looking into that program.
Are you?
Based
So
on
it'd
a
be
conference
great
that we
for
went
you
to.
guys to go look
Yes.
at it and learn about it and so forth. I think because they're doing great stuff, with it.
We appreciate that.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
So we are in the career development domain now, so we kind of already talked about that and covered some of the questions already. Once again, our goal from Cradle to Career is to promote college and career readiness. These are some of the things listed that we do. We do have career interest inventories that Mr. Tillman was talking about that we employ, and we help students through individual student planning to identify and pursue their post-secondary goals. We also work with the career pathways, which would also help students identify their interests by being in those career pathways at secondary. And then lastly, but not least, our social emotional development domain. This is extremely important because we know that students can't learn until their most basic needs are met. Counselors play a critical role in this area. We are specially trained in this area so that we can help identify students with any barriers to their learning. We collaborate with staff and admin to help identify any barriers to their learning within that domain. We also will work within our core curriculum and individual student planning to help instill more skills and aid in developing competencies that are going to assist students with success in school and life. Once again, I just want to note that we do operate in all three of these domains at 3 different levels, so elementary, middle, and high school. So obviously the things that we have listed will be adjusted to meet those developmental needs of the students at those developmental ages. I'm going to transfer over to Mr. Pedraza, and he's going to list out for you some of the ways that our department is supporting school counselors in their role.
All right, thank you.
Again, thank you for having us and allowing us to share this information. So as a department, the Student Wellness and Support Services, our goal is to provide support for our counselors through professional development, and that's provided through a monthly opportunity. The professional developments that we offer are all best practices based, and they are also based on data. So all counselors are provided the opportunity to share what it is that they might be lacking or they want to learn more about, and we make sure that whatever professional development that we're providing, that it reflects their needs. In addition to the professional development that we provide, we've also set up systems of support, but peer support through our cluster leader meetings, which are focused for counselors K through 8, and also for head counseling meetings, which are for grades 9 through 12. Another opportunity and support that we've provided or that we've established has been our articulation days for counselors at all levels. And what our articulation is where counselors at the middle school, elementary, and high school are all meeting together to try to align their programs as much as possible to facilitate transition for all students. So as a student moves from elementary school to middle school, that they're aware of what's available at the next level, and for the programs to somewhat reflect what they're already seeing at their current level, but again, to be age appropriate for all. And that same opportunity happens for students in middle school going on to the high schools, and then being aware of their counseling opportunities, but also their career pathways and information as such. So prior to the student getting to the next level, they already have some background information through these articulation days, the counselors working together, and also establishing opportunities for students to visit the next school. While we're focusing on the development, on our professional development, we're guided by the American School Counseling Association national standards, which are national standards, and also our state standards, which are the California Association School Counseling Standards. But in addition to that, we want to make sure that everything that we do is aligned with the district's LCAP and also with the KPIs. Some of the current strategies and techniques that we're utilizing in our counseling programs are the data-driven counseling programs, assuring that everything in our counseling programs, again, are driven by the need of the particular school which we are serving, that we are doing so in a multi-tiered, multi-domain system of support, which again is to address the career, academic, and also the social emotional needs of the students. And with that, we're having a strong focus on the social emotional learning piece of that currently, and also offering an undercover anti-bullying team. The latest professional development that was offered to our administrators and also our counselors around counseling was our Reignite program, which was a one-day conference, which was hosted on June 11th. And that provided an opportunity for both counselors and administrators to learn a little bit more and to expand their knowledge around the multi-tiered, multi-domain systems of support. We also focused on using data to drive comprehensive counseling programs. And also we used this time to roll out and better understand our new social emotional learning curriculum that we will be starting this coming school year. Here we see some of the curriculum that we are currently utilizing for classroom counseling lessons, which is Stop, Walk, and Talk. We have our second step and our School Connect, which is our new social emotional learning curriculum that we've had the privilege to provide our counseling staff with, and also our Insight program. As we look at next steps for our upcoming school year, our professional development foci will be to further expand our knowledge and the knowledge of all our staff around the multi-tiered, multi-domain systems of support, because that is very important, especially being that we have to be focusing on the academic, college and career, and the social and emotional learning of all students at different levels. So we want to ensure that all students are receiving a basic level of service, but also that we're using data to identify students that need additional needs or needs beyond that initial tier. We're also continuing our journey on becoming ASCA aligned and a data-driven counseling program. And our focus is going to be to provide further professional development around the social emotional curriculum that we'll be rolling out. One is specific to the K-8, which is the second step. The one specific to high school would be the School Connect. And one thing that is new to us is that in tandem with these professional developments for our counselors, school administrators will also be invited to participate in these trainings or in these professional developments. And the goal is for the administrator to better understand the role of the counselor, to provide additional support to what they're already providing to the counseling programs, but also to understand how counseling as a program impacts student achievement.
Thank you for your attention to the presentation, and we are available and ready for questions.
Okay, and I seen that Ms. Rogers had her hand up really quickly, and then we'll go with Dr. Flores and then Mr. Gallo.
Thank you for your presentation. Am I on? I think I am. Thank you. This is very important. This is something that we don't get to talk about much, and so I was very excited about having the presentation, before us today. One of the concerns that, as I look at the, as you're saying, you're moving from traditional to the 21st century. So, in a nutshell, what exactly does that mean? What are we going to do different? And I will tell you what I'm looking for, what I'm trying to explore. Is I did hear you talk about counseling from elementary all the way to high school, but I'm wondering, what is that systemic approach? What exactly are we doing interacting with the parents? When do you access a parent? When do you not? When do you lay out from, you said cradle to career, right? So what are we doing on that journey? And one of the reasons why I have brought this up again is because there was a point in time when we did a form of rounds with, going to the schools and actually sitting with the counselors, sitting with the students. And there were often times where those students had never even visited, and this was a high school, matter of fact, I was at particularly. They had never even talked to their counselor, didn't know who their counselor was, and things that were in the file weren't even signed to say that we have sat and talked with that student. And that's really the core of why I definitely wanted you all to come, because we need to address this now, because there are students, there are parents that are relying upon counselors as we know it to be, and yet the interaction is not there.
So part of what the ASCA national model and aligning SBCUSD district counseling with that model is that it's a systems approach. So when you're asking what the biggest difference is going to be is, as I mentioned earlier, we're moving from just an ancillary support to the school counseling program actually being an integral part of the school site. So what ASCA is going to allow us to do is it has tools for us to use in order to address some of those concerns that you have. So it's really going to help systematize what SBCUSD counseling at every single level will look like, so that a parent or a student or a staff member will know what to come to expect at every level in regards to the school counseling program.
So what happens when a student has fell off the radar and they've received D's and F's ongoing? When will this system catch that? When will they catch that?
We already have systems in place to catch that. Part of the pilot with Siembra at Seminardino High School is also going to help with that, to remove some of the human error in regards to that. But we do already have systems in place in terms of grading periods where counselors can identify students that are at risk of, or that are underserved.
But are you saying this is uniformed, or is it just at some schools?
At high school level, that is a
All
common
high
practice.
schools?
It is a best practice, yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Flores?
What's the average load for a high school counselor?
That depends per site. So we do have quite a big differential in terms of that, especially at elementary school when there's only one school counselor. So we have some schools where it's a 1 to 800 student ratio, and then we have some where it's maybe 1 to 375. So it depends on the level. The recommended ratio per the union is 1 to 375, and ASCA recommends 1 to 250. But right now our ratios vary.
So we have sites that are 1 to 800 that are
Yes.
high school?
Elementary school.
No, I'm just talking about high school.
At high school, no, it wouldn't. The ratio would not be that large.
1 to 375?
Yes.
Is there a way that counselors have to self-monitor who they, like Mrs. Rogers was talking about, have to monitor their contact with kids, and if kids are flagged, early, do they have more contact with the kids? Or are they required to only see them once or twice a year? What's the pattern?
Did you want to talk about that within the MDSS, since that was what you talked about?
Yes. So within the MTMDSS, the goal is to assure that there are basic things that we are doing throughout the entire school that every student is seeing. So before we were waiting for things to pop up, and now we're going to be very proactive in our approach. And again, at that tier one, it's defined by it being universal, that all students are seeing that whether it's a discussion on A through G requirements or a discussion on the pre-SATs or SATs. At that level, at the tier 1, they're all seeing that. With information that's pulled again at the grading periods, that information puts us at the tier 2 level where we're actually providing specific information and specific supports and identifying or helping the student identify specific interventions that we could put in place in order to get them back on track.
So you as counselors have to document the type of interaction you had and
That's
the
correct.
follow-through
Yes, ma'am.
in terms of what you're doing? And how many times do you see, how many times does a counselor see a student per semester?
That varies per grade level and then per site. So we do have counseling expectations per grade level for all of our counselors. That would look different at elementary, middle, and high school.
Right, so
Part
at
of
high school, what's the required minimum?
Well, we provide direct and indirect services, so that's a complicated question to answer because we do currently have right now a minimum of, at elementary school, providing 3 guidance lessons. At high school, we have minimums that we provide for direct and indirect services. So
Direct services, what's the minimum?
So that would be with and for. So at the high school level, the minimum that we're requiring right now is, are you talking about face-to-face contacts?
Mm-hmm.
So that also depends 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, but counselors should be seeing their students once per semester.
Just once?
Well, that also would include like classroom guidance lessons, things like that, groups, small groups, our tier 2 and tier 3
Oh,
supports.
so you're saying one-to-one, seeing them one-to-one?
For individual student planning, yes.
So
There are
that's
things
one-
that are
okay.
required at every grade level for individual student planning.
Mm-hmm.
But we see students more often based on those tiered approaches that
Right,
Mr.
right.
Pedraza was
Okay.
talking about before.
So only once a semester?
And then also we have responsive services. So there's students coming in crisis. There's students coming in that we need to assess and evaluate for greater risk. So we're seeing students at a higher level than just that based on the variety of services that we have to respond to.
Yeah, I was a high school teacher and, it was really difficult. I mean, I saw 187 kids a day and I can't even fathom, a counselor seeing, 375 kids in a quality interaction. And how long do they get to see the student?
That all varies. And like I said before too, we provide responsive services too. So sometimes the plan that you had when you started your morning isn't the plan that you ended up with at the end of the day.
I just see, I see that you're moving towards a more holistic, and more qualitative, interaction. Because the way that we've done it before has been too, I think, just too stark, not really connecting with the kids, so. And, I know it's complex, it's hard to explain everything, but it's, my main goal is the kids, I've been going to a lot of their functions, high school kids, and they have a lot of needs in terms of feeling that they belong, that they're valued, and that people care for them. So I hope that, I know you guys do your work, but I hope you also, you said you're going to work with administrators, but I would hope that you also work with the teachers.
Definitely. One of our core items within that model and what counselors have been doing, school counselors have been doing, is always collaboration.
Okay.
So we're always collaborating with staff and admin in order to address exactly what it is that you're saying.
Yeah.
We utilize our panorama data, which really pinpoints specific sites in terms of sense of belonging and self-efficacy and all those things that you mentioned to drive again what that specific school site's counseling program is going to focus on.
Mm-hmm. And then I imagine that once you have a cadre of kids with similar issues, that you organize focus groups and continue. Is that correct?
Definitely.
That's okay.
That's exactly what the data-driven multi-tiered system of support is
So
going
you
to
have
do.
solution-driven data.
Yes.
Right.
And that would be at the
great.
tier 2 level.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. And the next is Mr. Gallo.
Yes, thank you. and thanks for the presentation. Let's see, where do I start? Let's talk about the roles for a minute. And I just want to make sure what you're actually saying you've bitten off. That's academic development, career development, and social and emotional development falls in your area of responsibility. And you guys, the counselors, are the ones we go to for all three of those issues when we may find, issues with performance, issues with any one of those categories. You guys are stepping up saying that's your responsibility and role.
Go ahead.
So what I was going to mention is that when we identify there being issues, so our role is to provide, again, that tier one addressing all of those domains. But if the data is providing us information that says that students need additional support, it is our job as counselors, one, to provide that direct service if we can and if we have the means to do it. But if not, that we look to connect our students with the correct people to provide them that intervention. So if a student is not doing well academically and they need some support with regards to math, we'll make sure that they are tied to a math teacher. So in that sense, we are consulting and we are coordinating the services and the interventions that that student needs in order to get back on track or to rectify whatever it is that we're trying to get back to.
So you've seen our performance as regards to proficiency levels and performance of our students, let alone as they migrate towards high school, how many students are so many credit deficient, et cetera, that are part of a cohort that have been here. Can't hold you responsible for something that they transferred in from another district. But, we see such, how do I say it, maybe challenged performance results from academic. Let's just pick the academic, because career, I think we're just scratching the surface on that one. I'm not even going to, I don't even know how to address that at this 5 seconds with this. It's great that you're taking responsibility for it, but just academically, is there, first you say you're data-driven. Do you evaluate and look at student data? And does it trigger certain intervention strategies to you, immediate intervention strategies? For example, when we don't have a student who's reading at grade level, which many don't, by the end of third grade, we know that those are key performance indicators and triggers that should elicit some kind of remedial or corrective action or some kind of intervention strategy to assist them in some accelerated fashion. So I guess first question, do you actually review each student's data, and is this done automatically? Is this done just by you taking the 375 students and peeling through every record that you're going through and saying, I find this student with, deficient in these various areas? How is that done?
So
I mean, since it follows in your area of responsibility,
right,
just be
and I want to go
curious
back
see how that's
to your
done.
original question when you were saying we share that responsibility with the school site as well. So developing students academically, developing them in career awareness and support, that's a shared responsibility
Sure,
amongst
but who
the school.
who does the identification process to even know who to share it with? And shared, in my mind, just means that you don't actually hold any one person accountable for this. It's distributed, so you have nobody you can really hold accountable for it. That's what
I see
that
Dr.
kind of
Perez
means
grabbing
to
her
me.
microphone.
That's how I'm receiving this.
So
I heard that it's under the role and responsibility of a counselor. Do we hold the counselors responsible for this? I hear you. That's why I asked you originally. This role is such a significant, substantial responsibility. I don't know how any one person or just the limited number of counselors we have could actually perform effectively in this realm.
Right.
I don't know how you could do it.
Okay.
And Mr. Gallo, you're correct in that it is a very big task, and that is why when we look at the role of the counselor now, it's not just their responsibility, but they are now taking part in that responsibility alongside our teachers, because ultimately our teachers are looking at their data, but we're pulling in the counselors to have the comprehensive approach. It takes a village, so it can't just be the teacher, it can't just be the counselor, it has to be a
I know,
collective.
but it's got to be somebody that actually triggers the intervention. And it seems like so many of our students don't get that trigger activated. Or we wouldn't be seeing these performance numbers so, I guess, alarming.
Agreed. So our classroom teachers will hold the responsibility of those are their students. But because it is so complex and our counselors actually play, especially at the high school and middle school level, such a critical role in the classes, and the scheduling. So it does need to be that collective approach or that comprehensive approach. Our teachers, are assessing our students daily. Every day they're providing instruction and they are assessing where our students are. So ideally they're the first trigger because they're seeing them every day. They know them probably
So
better than.
who would that, let me just probe that a little bit. What trigger would that initiate? And then how is that student either receive within some reasonable amount of time some intervention that would see corrective action implemented during that school year?
And so the interventions typically do get triggered by a teacher, but you said something that is on point. Sometimes because with the number of kids, a kid could get lost, and I heard you say what happens to those kids. So we have our partnership with the academic and our counseling as the backup. So our eyes are on there, and teachers' eyes are on their students' progress, and how do I change my instruction to ensure that students aren't falling into that need for intervention. And then we have our the partnership between the two to help ensure that if there is something that is maybe has not been recognized or light on a particular student by a classroom teacher for whatever reason, then we have that partnership. Our counselors also can raise that red flag and say, hey, you know what, I'm noticing a trend here. Because sometimes it can be that a student's doing phenomenal in a class. It's a topic or a subject that they excel in and not so hot in another. And so if I'm a math teacher, I might see that and say, okay, the student's doing fine here. And teachers are collaborating and having conversations, but we have that layer of the counselor being able to also lay eyes on that student holistically.
Yeah, so again, maybe, I don't know that I ever got an answer to the question of the data-driven component on it. How is the data analyzed, looked at, retrieved, assessed? What is that process? Do you open up files?
So
or do you...
it's common, I can answer that for you. So it's common practice for counselors to pull reports from ARIES. We have pre-made reports already that are going to be those triggers that you're talking about. So DNF list, attendance, things of that nature. It's common practice for every school counselor to pull reports from ARIES to create those identifiers. It's also common practice to collaborate with teachers and admin in order to get that verbal data as well. So if a teacher...
that's a fair amount of work for, just to pull that much data for that many students and then trigger an intervention. And maybe that's why we're not seeing interventions triggers, is because it's so much work, you're not able to do it. I mean, that's what it seems like to me, is that we just don't seem to be able to be responsive given our current activities and efforts in this regard. That's just been my observation.
Mr. Gill, I'm going to take a stab at helping a little bit
Sure.
to piggyback off something that Jamie said, and that is, I'm going to use a very micro example. The DF&I report comes out. You have a student who has 3 Fs, first semester freshman. So now you have a student who's 15 years old-ish, who is in danger of not graduating, and also in danger of, if he does, or he or she does graduate, not being A to G ready for UC or CSU compliance. So that would trigger some action on the part of the counselor, because the DNF is already recorded. It's nothing's going to change that. So now what do? The intervention is probably credit recovery. So now we have 2 options. We have credit recovery for a graduation track, and we have credit recovery for an A to G track. That's where the relationship between the counselor and the individual student makes all the difference in the world, to say, I know it probably would be a little easier to take the credit recovery classes that lead to getting to graduation. And we've seen great gains in terms of our graduation rate over the last 6 years, from 67% to right around 90%. Not where we want to be all the way, but our A to G rates have lagged. We're at 31.5%. So it may be a matter of that intervention being, I know you'd rather take A+, but I'm going to put you in Apex, because we're going to get you, it may not be important to you today to get back on that A to G track, because you may not be thinking college, but we're going to make sure you have that option 4 years from now. So let's try Apex instead of A+. And that's the complexity and the intensity of the conversation in terms of what do we do today. Now, can you do that with 3 kids at a time, 7 kids at a time, who are all at, varying stages, 1F versus 2Fs versus 5Fs? You can't.
Right, let
And that's-
alone 375.
And that's where-
That's where I think
Right.
the rub really
And that's
hits
where it has
here.
to become a
So-
system.
And hence why I mean, we're here to help. I mean, I think you have an unbelievable challenge to see that many kids and actually do anything meaningful in the way of intervention, especially if those interventions aren't just already well established and well honed, and you're able to categorize quickly and ferret them into some kind of immediate response. But that's one thing that I've noticed, is that our interventions never really seem to hit in a broad perspective in a timely fashion. They're at best mid-year by the time some of this is even identified, and then so little is done to actually intervene that it's simply passed on to the next series of teacher that recognizes the student has a particular challenge in various areas and things, and it kind of seems to start the whole process over again, but never really receives the true intervention that's required, which in my mind is a whole nother almost, I don't want to say, it's a school approach. It's a whole intervention strategy on how you pull kids from various classes, accumulate them, a logistics nightmare, I can imagine, to actually just get kids with equal challenges in specific areas of math or English, put them into an accelerated course, and then get them reintegrated with their classroom as fast as you can do. So I don't know. I'm not getting a good sense that we know what works. I think we've got a great briefing on what doesn't work and what we're going to kind of move to in what we want to do. But it's not giving me super high confidence that we have some data-driven system in place that's going to come August 6th, assess students, evaluate them quickly, and by September, manifest them into various intervention strategies that are going to make a difference in that school year. That's, I guess,
And
all I
before
have.
you go, Mr. Tillman, Dr. Hill is waiting patiently for a while.
Thank you, Madam President. To the team, counselors, thank you for the great presentation. I appreciate all you have done, but also appreciate the next steps. And I'd like to make a recommendation, something I think I recommended about 2 years ago. I hope it's possible if you would consider a day where counselors can meet with all students on a particular campus. For instance, every counselor at the high school level can be at San Bernardino High School to be available all day long to students so that they can touch bases. There are some students who do not have a lot of confidence in their counselor, and they want to talk to a stranger, and sometimes you can get real good, solid information, especially from the social emotional standpoint. So I'm just hoping that's possible. And if it's not possible for all students, at least for seniors at the beginning of the school year. Now with the San Bernardino High School program that you're starting, is that going to be 9 through 12 for all
Yes.
students?
Yes.
And will for all students?
Yes, it's a program that the whole school site's going to
Great.
debut.
All right. And then the other thing that I saw missing from your presentation, some places it said all students, some places it didn't. And just want to make sure that, you know, even as counselors, we need to be reminded, we're here for all students, whether they have 0 credits or 250. And I just hope the counselors would be, you know, aware of that. And how will students know about this new vision that you're looking at for August? Is there a way of letting students know that we have not been able to, you know, we are not pleased 100% with the way direction we're going in. We're moving in a new direction, and this is what we're going to do for you.
I think that's a great consideration. I will follow up with the team to see if there's a plan for messaging to our students. I think that's great. We are working closely with admin and with teachers and our counselors, but the student piece is something that I want to check on to make sure that we are actually messaging that out to students in a way that they'll all receive that and know also what to expect and what they can count on from their counselors.
Great, thank you. And if we walk on any campus in December, will we meet a senior who will say to us, "I have not seen my counselor"? Please tell us no.
No.
Okay, all right.
And then I did want to just address something you said about on the presentation in terms of some students, all students. That's because we are working towards developing a multi-tiered system of support. So at tier 1, all students would receive those services, and then at tier 2 and tier 3, it would be more targeted. So that's why you're seeing that verbiage.
Okay. All right. Then my last question is one I get a number of phone calls from parents, and it involves the social, emotional standpoint. I'm constantly getting calls from parents who are saying, do you know any place my kid can get medical? My kid can get clothing. You know, they turn off our electricity. Are the counselors provided with that information so they don't say, well, I'm so sorry for you, but instead provide some solutions? Do they know where you can get the backpacks? Do they know where you can get the electricity turned on? You know, what are we building relationships with those agencies that we can pick up the phone and say, I know the policy, but this is what happened, and I need assistance?
We do have very strong relationships with our community-based organizations.
Okay.
And the counselor would be the person on campus that would be specially trained and have special knowledge around those things that you mentioned.
Okay, good. Well, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Tillman?
No, thank you very much. You know, the board knows that we don't have enough counselors. We had a proposal from one of our community groups that said they wanted to hire X number of additional counselors, and we agreed, but we felt like we didn't have the funding to do it. So we all understand that we need more counselors and more resources to do the type of work you guys are doing. So I think we should start from that perspective. So when I ask questions, I'm just asking questions to get a feeling from where we're at, because I know we may not be able to contact all the students that we want to, but we can do more than what we're doing right now. And so when we have these presentations, for me, I'm always looking for ways that we can spend additional money and get the biggest bang for the buck for that additional money. So it benefits everybody when y'all give us the information to say, you know, this is something that is low-hanging fruit. If we just had a little bit of extra money, we could purchase this and it would help in different areas. And it may be in one of the 3 areas you're talking about, whether it's academic development, career development, or social emotional development. But it benefits me if you tell me, I know a program, I wish we could do it, and I know by saying it, I'll make my boss mad today, but I know it's gonna benefit kids, so I'm gonna do it anyway. So and if you can call me later on, or, you know, give me a call and say, this would really help. That's the kind of information I wanna hear. But, you know, when you talk about data-driven, I really think that because we know we don't have enough money to buy the counselors that we need, then we need to partner with the organizations that are working with our district right now that could do some of this stuff. And when I guess a good example would be, I think all of our students that are seniors should file for FAFSA. Doesn't happen. Been talking about it the whole time being on the board, still doesn't happen. You have hit and misses where I might go into a site of Royal Valley where they have some nonprofit that comes on campus and does it. But that to me is something that we can partner with, whether Blue or YAP or one of these programs, and say, for our seniors, we're at every site, we're going to have a FAFSA night, and everybody can go ahead.
So with the Siembra program, that is one of the abilities that that program has, where as soon as a student files for the FAFSA, we are aware of it. So it would be a report that, or an alert that we would be provided that a student did not do that. So this program is going to allow us to remove that human error and not catching who did not do it by giving us that report.
No, you said the program.
I'm sorry, the Siembra?
Yeah, I understand.
The Siembra
But
program,
does the Siembra come with people?
So there's a technological support. So this is a web-based tool.
But I understand that.
Okay.
But the concern is the people.
Yes.
You know, if you get the Siembra, and I'm not good in Spanish.
No, you're okay. That's,
but
you said it perfectly.
If we get it, and I can't roll my R's, Ms. Medina. But if you get the data, then for instance, if you get the data, then I think we should have a contract with one of our community-based programs. You pass that data on to them, and you say, here's the people who haven't completed the FAFSA yet. We want to have a FAFSA night at the campus. We want you to do the outreach to these students, and then be on site to help explain to them how you fill it out. And then what's going to happen is they may start, and they're going to tell you, I can't fill out all the information because I have to have my parents involved. And that's when that one-on-one is going to really benefit us. And we're not going to help all the students, but we're going to help a whole lot more than we help right now. And I think there's nothing more critical than that, because you have students that will wait until graduation and decide they want to go to college. And then it's too late. They missed the deadline, felt the FAFSA, and they don't have the expertise that we could provide them before they leave the site to do it. It just reminds me of when I was a kid and my brother came home and said, hey, Dad, they got this grant I can fill out and I can get money. And he said, what the hell are you talking about, son? Nobody give out free money. And it took my brother a week to convince my dad there really was a thing called a Pell Grant, and they would give him money to pay for his college. There are still parents like that who aren't aware of the resources that are available. And if it would be just a huge benefit to all our students to provide that to them. I mean, because that's money and resources. You will have students that go on to college just because they have filled out their FAFSA compared to the ones who won't. You have students that will apply for different colleges because they realize they're empowered to have the money. So I really do encourage us to make sure that we have a program at all our sites that make sure our students do FAFSA. And then the same thing on your the section where you talk about social emotional development. I would hope that when a person comes in a student comes in for some type of counseling, or they have some bad incident, that it gets put into the system, and then we work with Department of Behavioral Health. I met with Veronica Kelly. She's the department head for behavioral health, and she told me there's tons of resources for our students, but we don't have the relationships between her office and us to take advantage of it. And so those are free resources that we can access, but it's the same thing. Maybe we can partner with some of the agencies, even if it's, Linda Hart does one where she just identifies students who have mental health problems. And maybe they can be like the conduit to work to make sure our students get in contact and somebody helps manage those services and resources that are out there. You talked about Aries. I've heard complaints that our teachers aren't fully using Aries right now. They're using Google Docs and Google Class to put information there. Is the Aries still a tool that's valid?
Yes, our counselors still utilize Aries.
Now, I know you use it, but do the teachers use it?
Per my understanding, they do. Google Docs is definitely another tool.
It's Google Class.
Yes, that's definitely another tool that even counselors could use if they choose to. But I did want to also assure you that we do have counselors already holding information nights for FAFSA. We do have parents coming to complete parent portals. We have counselors that are doing that already.
At all the sites?
Yes. And then we also, there was something else you mentioned regarding
So
creating
just-
partnerships with our
Just so I'm clear,
yes.
this is important. So at Cajon, they had a program a night where they said you can come in and we're gonna do your FAFSA?
This is part of designing the comprehensive counseling program. So yes, and that would be working in tandem with whatever the school site goals are as well. So
And you don't
working
have,
with
you don't
admin.
have to have the numbers right now, but if you could give me the number of students who
Yes.
participated, that would help also.
And then I also wanted to address what you said about creating those collaborative partnerships, and we do have those as well. We have very strong relationships with our community-based organizations in order to, if something needs to be provided beyond the short-term counseling that a counselor can provide, then we have relationships in order to refer our students and our families out to receive those services.
And you think that they're being accomplished at the highest levels possible?
There's always room for improvement.
No, but the key is this. In our district, we have a book this high about policies, if we print them all out. And there's a program for everything and everybody. The disconnect is the average person doesn't know about it. So it's not servicing a lot of people. So when you tell me this, it doesn't benefit anybody if you know there's a program that exists, but you can't say to me, and you're not good at saying it because you haven't said it tonight, what percentage of our students are participating? Because if you say it, then that means it's not a problem. But if I have a large number of students that aren't benefiting from it, then it is a problem.
So I can tell you that with one of our community partners, by April, we were already to capacity with the amount of referrals that counselors were giving for mental and behavioral services.
And you didn't name
So
one. And you didn't name one number when you said that capacity could be 2.
we just had a meeting with one of our community-based organizations 2 weeks ago, and we are waiting for the numbers from them.
But you didn't give me any numbers. You said your
You're
capacity.
correct, and we
What's
can definitely
capacity?
get that for you.
What's capacity?
So we will get that information by partner group, so that way we know really what our capacity is, because one group may be able to accommodate 150, another group, and so we'll
And
get a better
remember this, though.
understanding.
Remember what I'm telling you. Your capacity means nothing to me. If your capacity is 50, but I have 10,000 students, it doesn't mean anything. It means that we're not accomplishing enough. And I need folks to come to us to give us realistic perspective of where we're at. It doesn't benefit us to get information about all the programs we have without having some sense of how many students it's affecting. And I think the entire board feels like it's not affecting enough students. Just with our layman perspective, we see students out there that aren't being contacted and being able to realize their full potential because we don't have enough bodies contacting those folks. That's at least, I don't know about other board members, but that's
Mr.
the
Tillman.
feeling that I have. So when you use terms like capacity, it gives me the feeling that everybody's being touched and the board's just dumb and don't realize all this stuff is going on. And I hope that is the reality. But if it's not, then we need to know that.
Mr. Tillman, if I can add something to, we are aware, and we, this last school year, have really been nurturing our partnerships specifically with Department of Behavioral Health and Veronica Kelly, who you mentioned. And so we started the conversation back in the summertime, then we met with the various people throughout, and then they were going through their RFP process. We are going to be doubling the services that we offer at our schools this next school year, specifically around student interventions. They have SAP programs, and they have, I forget what the other acronym is, because we know that our students need more, and in addition to that, we'll be offering those services on campus at our highest need schools. So
Great.
we have been very thoughtful about that, and we've been moving in that direction. I can't give you the actual numbers at this very moment also, but what we've also done for this coming school year is we're targeting, there's one particular provider that has done, that Department of Behavioral Health is going to contract for Symardino in totality. Before, we used to have different providers also through DBH, but there's been one that's been very responsive to us and really meeting the needs of our community. So that is who DBH has selected.
Great.
And who will be partnering with us. So we're moving in that direction.
Great.
And so know that we've recognized the need as well. And a big piece of it really is providing services on campus for our students who have the greatest need, because when we give them referrals and then they don't make it to the referral, then we still haven't met the need. So
And-
it's in process.
And Dr. Bernard, you just made an excellent point, because the goal of the board is to make sure we're always making progress. So, and the reason why it's important for me to see numbers, because if if someone says to me that we're at capacity, but if you show me the numbers and we serviced 300 kids, but last year we serviced 400 kids, then that tells me I'm going in the wrong direction. It doesn't matter what your words are, the numbers speak for themselves. Because when I don't service those kids, it's life or death for a lot of these kids.
Exactly.
So the district has to ensure that every year we're doing better than we did the year before. That's my only goal. We want to continue to move the dial in the right direction. We're reasonable, but we have to make sure that we're taking the steps to make things better and service as many kids as possible. And every year we want to service more kids in a better way, and that's what it comes down to. So I'm always going to drive to get that, and that's what I'm talking about from the social emotional. That's great.
Yes.
I'm glad to hear we're doing that, and we need to do the same thing in the areas of like Mr. Gallo was talking about tonight in terms of performance. And you don't hear it because you're not here every night. But Ms. Rogers is always concerned about ensuring that we have more kids that become proficient. And so that data should also drive that. And you should be telling us that if we had more organizations that we could work with, that's what I think the only way it's going to happen. We're not going to pay for more counselors. So you need to have more organizations you can work with that will do the work that you know needs to be done. And the counselors should be the ones that help organize it, administer it, and analyze it to make sure it's being done appropriately. But we should be, the board should be prompted and asked for more and more funding for those programs, because that's what we're here for. We really want to see the work that you all do as counselors enhanced and benefit more of our students. And that's what it comes down to.
And I do appreciate that Dr. Menarez brought that up, because due to our relationship with DBH, they have doubled and tripled programs for us. We are working on getting those numbers. We just had a meeting last week, and they're working on those numbers for us. So you will have that.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then Ms. Rogers, you had a quick question, and
Yeah, I
I'll
did.
pass it to
Just a
Dr.
quick
Cook.
statement again, too, just to reiterate, which is the reason why we wanted this presentation. I believe that we have not had enough conversations with counselors, because we see you in the role of supporting, especially when we come to the academic side. But I do want to emphasize what I didn't hear much, again, was the parent is still left out of this equation a lot. Now, maybe it's embedded in there somewhere, but I'm not hearing it. And when we get into conversations about Department of Behavioral Health, which I'm so happy to see and know that Dr. Menarez has been following that up since she came to the district. But there's consent things that are involved in there, and if we are not having the conversation with the parent, we can lead them there, but then we still won't get what the Department of Behavioral Health can do for us. They have tons of dollars, more dollars than we can imagine. That's why I always continuously brought that up. One of the organizations I work for day to day is a part of the Department of Behavioral Health and our foster youth. But if we don't engage them, we're just allowing them to be here, and they want to be a resource, but we do have to foster those relationships. But the parents, I cannot emphasize, we still have to have the parents involved in this, because we can't just say, well, I think you have some social and emotional issues here, and we're going to refer you here. You're still damaging the relationship. It has to be vetted properly. And then lastly, when we talk about our teachers, and we kept hearing about the data and the numbers, and we do like to see the numbers. You know, where were we? How many did you serve? Great. And I like it sometimes, but more than not, because once I see it, it's done. And I see that kids, again, didn't get what they needed to get. So being more proactive and saying, is there a conversation that is continuously happening with counselors and the teachers? Are you really having conversations when they go out on their professional development? When you do the reignite, are they there? Are teachers there with the counselors, and we're jointly having a conversation? Because what I didn't hear is, how does little Johnny or little Susie or Sally or whomever, when something happens, who brings it over? Who says, they have a D here and this is what we need to do, or they have an F? And that's just how I see it. The kid is not gonna go and say, look, I have this problem, fix me. It has to be the adults, it has to be the teachers, it has to be the counselors working together. But again, I will leave this note that the parent still needs to be involved in that conversation to say, here's where we are, now what can we do together to make it happen? Thanks.
All right, and then Dr. Flores was going to mention, and then Dr. Wyatt also has one. Have a comment.
I would just like to recommend, given listening to my colleagues, we not only want the numbers, but I think that, we need, Dr. Volkemer, we need like quarterly reports on your progress. I'm assuming that you are collecting data and, right, correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it's not enough just to correct data. That's quantitative data. It's important. But what are the qualitative aspects? You know, what are the milestones in terms of, okay, you're tripling the amount of work that behavioral and social services is providing, but what kind? And what are the results? And how have they impacted the kids? You know, it's not enough just to say numbers. Or if, you know, like Mr. Tillman said, you know, YAP and Blue can help in providing services for helping the kids fill out the FAFSAs. You know, it shouldn't just be the counselors, but what are our community organizations that can provide and support us in doing that? And so that's important. And so that you don't think you have to do all the work, but what are the collective resources? So I highly recommend that we get a quarterly report so that we can, you know, gauge. And then also, if you see needs, like Mr. Tillman said, and there's money available, what can we fund that needs to be funded so that, you know, to take you over the hill, right? Okay, thank you.
All right, and then Dr. Wyatt.
Thank you, Madam President, and again, thank you for the presentation, and absolutely thank you for everything that you do and all of your counselors on a daily basis. It's quite obvious that, you know, your caseloads are huge, and that's a daunting challenge for us to provide that service to our students. And, you know, you've heard a lot about capacity today, and part of our goal is to, you know, service all students. So again, you've heard it from our board. We're here to support you in that effort and that endeavor, because in order to do that, I mean, that takes time and people. And we've heard involving our community organizations as well. So, you know, I think that's a rather bold goal, but it's definitely one we have to achieve. I've had very good experiences with counselors with my children, especially in regards to SEL. And I was taking a look at that, and our social emotional, let me take a look, development. You know, we have a number of bullet points there, and I'm looking at the last three that, you know, talk about evaluate suicide risks, respond to crisis, and provide intervention and progress, monitor counseling interventions. One of my concerns on that list that I don't see, though, is identification. How do we identify students that are in need? Because our students aren't necessarily going to come up to us and tell us. So, you know, what are some prompts? What are some signs that we have to be able to work with our students that are suffering from trauma on the inside? And that's one of my biggest concerns when I do visit schools, and even in my own life when I'm at work, that how do we know kids are suffering? Because it is difficult to assess and identify. So that would be something I'd like to hear about. And maybe we already have that tool in place. It's just not part of this presentation. Evaluate suicide risks. You know, again, what prompts that? You know, for us to evaluate that. Obviously, I don't think that's going to be every student, but what is a prompt that, you know, causes us to do that, to evaluate that? Because again, another issue that we don't ever want to see in our schools. Now back to the career interest inventory. It was my understanding, at least in the past, that we were to work with our students starting in 3rd grade to have them soft skills certified, I believe, by middle school. So I would think, and this is why I'm asking, do we not administer that career inventory or interest inventory survey sometime during those early years for our students, our children, to start to create that, you know, interest idea of what is my dream career? Because I wouldn't hope that we're waiting till our senior year or when they're in high school to actually get them thinking about that, especially when we're talking about career readiness. And we have all these pathways now that are absolutely amazing that are starting in middle school. So I'm just wondering, you know, when do we initiate that career interest inventory and survey?
So thank you for that question. We are actually currently working between our counseling team and our college and career readiness team with Pam Kempthorne on identifying a career interest. And actually, because things have changed so drastically as we think about how our career paths have evolved, That is why that had kind of been in flux. And so we're identifying something now that will take us through at least, the next several years in helping from our earliest, like you said, around the third grade age, all the way up through with, getting students focused on not necessarily a career at third grade, but that whole soft skills piece and helping them identify and our teachers identify areas for growth and areas for improvement for our students in that regard.
Okay, thank you, because I know, and it'd be nice to know what our career interest inventory program is or that we utilize, because it's usually online and it's not a hard thing to administer, and that should be something that is definitely 100% across the board. And, I talk to my children in elementary school and middle school. We have a very good idea what they want to do, so that should be across the board for 100% of our kids, because maybe not all of our students are having that conversation at home. And we need to have that conversation with them as well. So again, thank you for the presentation, and we look forward to more to come in the years and to come, and we're here to support you. I mean, you're hearing that from our folks here. And again, like a number of us have said, there are sincere concerns from us because we're such a huge district with so many kids. Yeah, that we need to be able to reach every student, as you said, all students. So thanks again.
All right, and I know Mr. Tillman has a quick question.
Yeah, and this is a question for your next presentation to the board. If you were going to present data to the board, what data would it be? If you were going to give me statistics that you feel is associated with your counseling roles, what statistics would you show me? And say, for instance, you're going to give me statistics like they normally do. They say this is the trend from 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. And you're going to show me either it's going up or down. What data would it be? Because that's the data I like to see the next time you all
I'm sorry,
come and
I
do a
thought that was a
presentation for
rhetorical
us.
question.
And you don't have to answer right now, but I mean, the next time you come, I hope you come with data that you feel you own and you're responsible for, and whether it's how many students you service a year, how many times you service those students, how many students you service that have less than 50 units at 10th grade level, which flags you saying, we're going to talk about some options for you, whether it's Sierra, San Andreas, some of the other resources we have. Those are the type of things I want to see. That would make a huge difference to me. It made me feel a whole lot more comfortable that we're going in the right direction. Thank you.
All right, now I have additional comments, since I was waiting patiently for everyone. Going back on page 7, our articulation days in fall and spring, and it was mentioned elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. How long has this been in effect? How long have you been doing that part?
Sorry, that would be 2 years.
It's not new.
So,
It's not new. We've been doing it for several
Okay.
years.
And the reason why I'm asking is that if we're using this as a continuous support, have we seen good outcomes because of this program? Or if we haven't seen any good outcomes, then what are we doing to improve upon it?
So some of the conversations around the articulation are the identification of students that might need additional supports. So what the conversations that are happening include would be what the identification of the student, but what has been done at the school that they're currently at, and what are some of the possible recommendations as we move forward and that student transition from one level to the next. What do they see as being something that they could also do?
Okay, and the reason why I say that is just because if we see that it hasn't, we've gained or our students have improved in those services, and then let's just try to see what we can try to do to improve it, and that's all it is. And then I'll go back to, on page 9, the core curriculum for classroom counseling lessons, and I see these, these great type of programs, but I'm wondering how effective are these programs? We have the School Connect, and we have the Insight for drug and alcohol. A lot of our kids are going through real issues, such as even dealing with synthetic drugs and so forth. How are these kind of lesson plans actually being used in real life? San Bernardino, our students are really facing hard times. How does that translate to the the
So for
counselor?
the purposes of the second step in School Connect, that is new curriculum that's going to be rolled out this coming year. For the purposes of the Insight, that is curriculum that could be used at the tier 1 to just have conversations around what drugs are, their effects, and how we dissuade students from doing that. The curriculum is also used at the next level, which is a tier 2 level, through C violations or students that are at risk of using those drugs.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, well, it does, but I'm just curious because I don't want to make it too where it's kitty, because these are real issues that our kids are facing, and a lot of times the kids already see things, they'll see needles and they'll see something in the streets. I just want to make sure that we're using programs that are not just kitty or just very simplified in, maybe if it was a different community, but we're in Seminardino, so we want to make sure that.
In the selection of the curriculum, it was selected purposely to be developmentally appropriate. Again, to have those real conversations, because what the issues that we face in our community here are, I would say, different than other communities. So again, it's age appropriate and it's based to address our specific need in our cities and our schools.
Okay, okay. And another piece is that I didn't see here was looking at maybe cultural, are counselors taking any type of cultural proficiency training, dealing with making sure that, and this would be another thing with looking at data, is looking at the demographics of how many students are not seeing the counselors, and maybe that might be something we'll have an eye opener. Maybe there's a certain population of students that are not seeing the counselor at higher numbers, and so that would be great for me to see. And if that's the case, then the cultural proficiency would be very important for our counselors to be attending to make sure that they're understanding different high expectations for all groups. And with that recommendations, I also want to include the training with that would be, there's a conference that's coming up, but I think it's already too late, SENG, which deals with social and emotional needs of gifted students, looking at issues within our students with disabilities and the various needs, as well as our LGBTQ, our dreamers, because counselors at one point didn't know, and I've heard this from several, in specific situations, students were trying to get FAFSA, apply to FAFSA because that was a recommendation by the counselor. Unfortunately for dreamers, the moment you apply for FAFSA, then you become, you get no credit for it, and now you can't even apply for dreamers. So making sure that our counselors are understanding the different programs out there and not to be mistaken about not providing a good direction for our students.
Thank you for that. And that is part of our professional development plans that are coming out of our department, Student Wellness and Support. And then I did want to address, we do have a group of program specialist counselors and counselors that are being certified in cultural proficiency right now. We started at the end of last year, and so we will be certified to deliver that training as well to our school counselors.
Okay. And just seeing the type of effective programs. And then Dr. White has a question?
Thank you, Madam President, and I apologize I didn't remember this because I got a little note from folks in our community. They actually are watching out there, which is nice. And I apologize, I forgot to inquire and ask about, our students with special needs. And we know they all have to have a transition plan, obviously, when they're in high school, but is part of that transition plan also a career assessment inventory? And are they administered, the same inventory? And if not, obviously, if we have low cognitive students, what do we use for them? And or if we have counselors at our sites, such as Anderson and other schools.
I'm going to ask Dr. Monadas to address that question.
So, Dr. White, thank you. That's a really good question. For our students, as you said, we have our different levels, right? So for students that are part of our general education program, they go through the same thing that everybody else, and they should, right? Because we know that they can achieve the same as everybody else. For a student who may have a different level of access entry point, where we would want to find out what are some career interests, and then what they would be wanting to do, and then giving them opportunities to practice that. I'll find out, and I'll get that information to you specifically on what does that assessment look like and sound like. As you know, there is the transition goals, and we have a pretty thorough transition program for all of our students who are in our SH program, and we're actually pretty much, the state likes to look at us for that particular program. So I'll get that information specifically if they can't access the career inventory that the general education students are using. What does that look like? And then I think you had a follow-up question, which was, is there a counselor specifically at Anderson? Was that a follow-up?
That was too, yeah.
And there is not a counselor specifically at Anderson. However, because we have a larger population of students with the transition, our transition program specialist works there very frequently.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Menardez.
Yes.
And I'm glad. Very comprehensive answer, and we could add that little information when you guys present to us again. Thank you.
One more thing, and this is only in addition to the comments that I made earlier, is the biases. Right now, we're in a different time, unfortunately, under this administration. And I will say that because you hear in the news media, you hear different situations where individuals are being very vocal, sharing teachers or individuals within that works within the school district that might feel, even with immigration, that they do not deserve to be here. And so I want to make sure that when we're looking at certain biases, that regardless of however this person, whoever works in our school districts that are working with our students, however they feel, they should be able to provide services that addresses our students' needs. And so I just want to make sure that our counselors are included in that talk, that it don't matter how you feel, if you don't agree with certain things, you still have to provide these no matter what. Yeah. So I just want to make sure, because I know, but even with the law, sometimes they will still have a certain bias, and then they'll fall through the cracks. So I just need to make sure. All right, thank you so much for your presentation. I don't know if you wanted to add something to that.
I just wanted to thank you guys for your support this evening and the interest that you're taking in the work that's taking place. It means a lot to us to hear the support and the questions come to us as support. We know that you're asking those because you want to dig a little deeper in what we're doing, and we appreciate that. So thank you guys.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you. And then we have Dr. Volkemer that has a couple more.
Before the team leaves, I want to give them a shout out for coming down and giving this report this evening. We thank you for your time and the time it took to prepare and to go through the process. We know this is not easy work. We know it's very complex, very intense work with a variety of challenges that some of our students face, but we thank you for where you've been and where you're going and the new vision. I also want to say thank you to the board. One of the most important things you can do and one of the most valuable things you can do is make your expectations very clear to the administration, and you certainly did that this evening. And what we're hearing is that go find the tools that are going to help you service kids rather than manage paper or do other ancillary types of things. And then when you are set with the data, bring it back to us so that we're not about the business of mistaking activity for productivity. Sometimes we spend a lot of time doing things, but they don't really lead us to any meaningful place or outcome. And so what we heard from the board, and when I recap our follow-ups from the evening, from the total agenda, I'll share some specific things. But what you shared with us and this team this evening is that we want to know that the investment is making a difference, that there's a return on investment for our students, and that whatever it takes to get the job done, that's what we need to get done. So thank you for that, board. And again, thank you, team.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Dr. Volkemer, are there any blue slips? I believe there's two. For public comment?
We do have two
3.0.
public comment slips this evening. The board welcomes Stan Futch on the subject of WAG.
Good evening, Seminardino City Unified School District. My name is Stan Futch. I'm the president of Westside Action Group. And I'm here tonight. I know I have support of some of the board members. I'm here to ask for the support of all the board members. Francis Grice was a key figure in the fight for integration of schools within forming a grassroots coalition that became the voice for the voiceless and the poorest African Americans in the Inland Empire on issues of segregation in the schools and joblessness in local communities. WAG has for a long time been trying to get some kind of monument for Francis Grice. We have the support of Dr. Margaret Hill, Vice President Gwen Rogers, President Abigail Medina, and I'm here tonight to ask for support from all the board members. You're currently going to build 2 buildings for the Unified School District. WAG is asking, and the community is asking that her name be placed on one of those buildings. This woman went to the Capitol. She went to the Vice President's office. She asked him for funds to build buildings in this area. And when he said, we don't do that, she grabbed his desk. She would not leave his office until he said yes. And he did say yes. And she got buildings built for her. She has passed away, and we would like to remember her because of her work within the school district and because of her work within the community, that one of those buildings bear her name. I really look forward to all of your support in this issue, and will continue to press you to support that issue. On another matter, same thing with New Hope Missionary Baptist Church. They have agreed to meet with us tomorrow. And so that issue we have with them is going to be resolved tomorrow. So we're moving along, and I just hope that I get your support in the same matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, and definitely we'll
Did
have
you
that
want me to clarify
conversation.
what I was talking about? What we're doing is we're putting a plaque for her on the building that she allowed to be built. We were having some issues with the church allowing us to do so, and as of today, I talked to the right person. We're meeting with him tomorrow, and it's going to be resolved.
And those are the two buildings that she brought in funding to build, right? Those are the two
One's the wall
monies,
building,
right,
and
right.
one's the church's building.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And then Dr. Flores?
Thank you, Madam President. I think it's very apropos what you're asking, because she was a great civil rights leader and fought
great
till
civil
the
rights
end.
leader.
And many people in this community benefited by her courage and her forthrightness and her, she never gave up, ever. And when she passed, I remember that I proposed that we name a school after her. However, I think it's very apropos that we consider, naming one of the new buildings that we're going to be building because of her. I mean, she was relentless and tireless in what she did. So anyway, I just want you to know that. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Flores, and
Yeah.
that means I have one more support.
Yes.
And I know it's public comments, but I just want to mention on regards Frances Grice. She was an amazing parent as well. If you look at all the parents and where we can be and what kind of work we can try to aspire to, she definitely was a model of what parent engagement looked like and making sure that she created the change for our children here in the district. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And then Mr. Tillman.
Yeah, just for the record, some years ago, the building that New Hope Missionary Baptist Church actually purchased, the city came to us, the district, and said, we want to allow the district to buy this building because we have the other building already.
right.
And I was one of the board members who said, no, we don't want to buy the building because this building should be used for the community. And I knew that if we bought it, then the community wouldn't have the accessibility that it. Now I didn't know it was going to end up being New Hope Missionary Baptist Church that purchased it, but I just knew that it should be an organization that was going to continue to allow community groups to meet there for a reasonable price. And it just so happened that it worked out, I think, in a good way. And that building is still being used for the community. And one of the driving forces for me was the fact that I knew it was Frances Grice who fought to get those buildings put there on the west side of Seminardino. So I think it's appropriate that they're allowing you to put the plaque there. Because it's not agendized, I can't discuss the other issue brought up, but we'll agendize it later and then we'll take it up.
So we will add that in the agenda.
Thank you very much.
Having that
Thank you for-
conversation, please.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Futch, excuse me, I do want to let you know that the board does have a naming committee, and it is active right now in terms of other considerations that have been made and other requests for different types of quads and that type of thing. So board will send a BC to you to let you know exactly where we are in process with the naming committee. And this has already been introduced
And
as a
if I need to submit
possibility.
any papers, let me know.
if there's anything you need to do, which I don't think there's anything, but be sure to let you know.
I appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, the board welcomes Rochelle Capuzio on the subject of student study team. Rochelle, oh, there she is.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rochelle Capozio, and one of the things that occurred to me, I came in a little bit late, so they may have addressed it and I didn't hear it, but on the first time that students are identified, and usually it's academically, is by the teachers because they're not getting good enough grades. And then they say, okay, well, we're going to have a student study team. And most of the people that are supposed to be on the student study teams sometimes are there, sometimes not. Sometimes the parents are there, sometimes not. But if the student needs mental health services and they're not identified, then they go unmet. And I'm wondering if there's some kind of a screening that could be done on paper at least by the teacher or the people that do come to the student study team in order to identify whether or not the child needs any kind of mental health assistance. I think that would help us to catch a lot of people early on that could benefit a lot, especially in our community, and get the services that they need instead of they get their academic scores up to an acceptable level and then just let them go. They don't need services anymore. So that might be somewhere that we could strengthen to ensure that they get the services. Another thing that concerned me was a friend of my daughter's died from an aneurysm, and she left a 5th grader at Holcomb, a little girl at Shandon Hills, and another little girl at Cajon. And when she died unexpectedly, I thought, maybe I should, let someone at the school know that they're going through this situation. So I called all 3 schools, and I couldn't get anyone who wanted to say, oh, yeah, well, you can talk to this person, or you can call mental health, and they'll look into it. As far as I know, they didn't get any service or anyone to pay attention. Plus, the people that answered the phone didn't really know what to do with me and my concern. Okay. So I was wondering if maybe we could establish some kind of a phone contact number for people in the community or anyone that thinks that there's a need for someone to look in on a child.
All right. Thank you. That's a great
Okay.
idea. And
But they never got help?
Not as far as I know, no.
Well, you
I mean, I helped, other people helped, other friends helped.
You can always call the superintendent and.
Oh, my goodness. Okay,
That's what he's
that
there.
didn't occur to me, but yeah, I just thought, what concerned me,
I hear what you're saying. I'm just saying at the last resort, rather than not call anybody, we want the students to get service.
Right.
Superintendent, you can call board members. I mean, that's what we
Yeah,
love
you
to
can
do.
call us as
Step
well.
in and help out. That's critical.
But we should set.
We
some
shouldn't have to,
standards.
but if it
yeah,
goes,
I just felt like when you do call a school and say, well, this child's in 5th grade and
I agree.
his mother just died, and could someone kind of
But they don't
check
give a
in on him?
response, then I'll.
They're
look
like,
for
well,
the
gee,
bump
I
it
don't
up.
know, let me see who I can ask.
Madam President?
Yes,
I
Dr.
think
Flores.
your idea is really great, that you have a central number, someone who really knows and can refer you in a crisis situation such as that, which is really important for the mental health of the kids.
Right.
They probably will need counseling for a couple of years, maybe longer.
Mm-hmm, definitely, okay.
And I'm not saying it just for your benefit, but I think I'm saying it for the public at large. If you're
That's
not-
what I'm thinking,
if you're
getting
not
those
getting
services to the
right,
children.
And we'll work on that. But if people go to the sites and they don't get what they want, then that's the role of everybody else that's here tonight, is to, for you all to access us to make sure we take care of. Because in the end, you're going to take care of those students. That's what's critical. So there is no reason for folks not to contact the administrators and superintendents, assistant superintendents, and board members. That's what our role is.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. We have more, one more.
The board welcomes Trayvon Martin, CSBA update.
Sorry about that. I'm a new homeowner and someone was at my door ringing my doorbell camera, so I'm kind of paranoid. So I was trying to see, there was like a group of people at my door, so I was trying to see who they were. Good evening. My name is Trayvon Martin. Of course, you all know me. CSBA PACER for San Bernardino and Inyo County. I am here to give you a CSBA update. So I'll be attending at least one of your board meetings every month to give you guys a CSBA update on legislation and things that are happening at the state level. So first thing is, so next week, or this week actually, is the Leadership Institute. So hopefully some of you guys are able to get down to CSBA's Leadership Institute. It's gonna be really, a really good institute. I believe the focus is on STEM and also on coding. So I know they have two powerful, dynamic ladies who are going to talk about coding. One for the founder of Latino Girls Code and one the founder of Black Girls Code. So that's going to be very interesting. And it definitely goes hand in hand with the new NGSS standards. So as you may recall, last year, or this year was the first time our kids had to take the NGSS test as a baseline. And so next year, you know, however they do will reflect on this year's baseline data. So that's going to be interesting. Also, many of you guys saw that the Supreme Court made a decision on Janus about a week and a half ago. So that definitely affects our districts. I sent you all an email on the budget update from the governor. So hopefully you guys got a chance to read that. Also, hopefully you guys got a chance to tune in on our general counsels and our litigators webinar around Janus and how that's going to impact our districts and kind of what the decision of Janus means for our districts. Some of the language was clear around Janus and stopping payroll deductions. Others were vague and left it up to the interpretation of the person that was reading it. So if you guys have any questions, I do urge you guys to reach out to your counsel, your legal counsel, and you guys are members of CSBA, so you can always give our legal department a call if you have a quick question regarding Janus or any of the other decisions that have been made. Also, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of the State Allocation Board's decision to change the way they've been funding bond applications. So currently, you can submit your bond application regardless if they have the funds to approve your bond application. However, the board has decided to go another direction. So they've decided if they get $1 billion in funds for state bonds, once that money is exhausted, they're then going to require individuals who submitted an application but didn't get filled to resubmit again and get put on another list. And so CSBA feels that that is time consuming and kind of wastes time. So even if the state doesn't have money to allocate for the bonds, we feel that you should keep your place in line on the list and not get bumped off. So I believe there was an email that came out this morning or yesterday morning to our members urging you guys to call your state allocation board, urging them to turn their vote back and keep the system the way it is currently. So that's a big one. CSBA is putting out a very aggressive campaign opposing that. Again, we feel that the decisions should be left up to the local governing boards as to how, monies are spent, how the process should go when they're submitting their application for state bond. And then lastly, CSBA has a new program. So you guys are aware of the Golden Bell program. You guys won several Golden Bells last year. Congratulations. There is a Nominate Your Local Legislator Award. So if you feel that there is a local legislator who has been championing education, LCAP funding, pushing full and fair funding on behalf of our districts and our kids, we would like you to nominate that person, and we will recognize them at a luncheon and everything. So I will email you guys a link to that as well. And then I want to personally thank Karen Cunningham for getting me the full and fair funding, the resolution that you all passed. CSBA is grateful for you all passing that full and fair funding. It's really going to help. We're really pushing to get about $7,000 per pupil in additional funding to bring California up from the 43rd funded state to around the top 5 states in the United States in educational funding. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me. I would love to take you out to lunch, kind of get to know you a little bit better, talk about some CSBA initiatives. So you guys can email me or call me. I'm looking at you, Abigail. I talked to James about you. So,
Okay, yeah, I got the message.
Okay, great. All right, you guys have a great evening.
All right, I do have a question, and it's just for you to take back to the team. I know that there's a youth conference, no, not the youth conference, the leadership conference. My question is why is it so expensive for the hotel room? Maybe they should have gotten a discount. So if maybe you can ask them, since we're trying to save money as well and trying to get more money, is looking at venues and trying to make sure that they also provide a discount, the locations they pick. So
I definitely will bring that back to the team. I do know San Francisco is very expensive because a lot of people like to have conferences in San Francisco. And so when there's a lot of conferences, the room rates unfortunately go up. So I will bring that back to the team.
All right, perfect, thank you. Okay, moving along to, I think that's it, right? Yes. Okay, so we're gonna go to 4.0, reports and comments. 4.1, report by Seminardino Teachers Association. Okay, come on up. Yes.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Peg Tracy. I serve as the Executive Director in California Teachers Association Professional Staff for the San Bernardino Teachers Association. Ashley Alcala, President of the association, is at home with her family coming back from the Minneapolis convention just early this week. So I'm here on behalf of the association. And with the only thing that I want to say is not only do I want to thank you for the collective bargaining agreement that we have mutually ratified, but secondarily, and with all due respect to Mr. Trayvon, the correct interpretation of the Janus decision is not the termination of payroll deduction. It is, in fact, the elimination of the agency fees that are collected from those individuals in the bargaining unit who choose not to be full-fledged members of the association. That's the significant difference in terms of Janus. We're working very closely with Ms. Christakis and with the payroll department in terms of what are the implications for it. And Ashley has been very articulate with the superintendent to ensure that we don't put the district in a position that is uncomfortable for them in terms of how do you meet the requirements under Janus and the decision. So we wanted to let you know that we are, in fact, working very closely together to make sure that both parties are protected.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
4.2, report by Seminardino School Employees Association. Any comment? No comments? No? Okay. So then 4.3, report by Communication Workers of America. Do we have comments?
Good evening,
Good evening.
Dr. Volkemer and fellow board members. My name is Stephen Gianni. I'm the Area Vice President for Substitute School Teachers. We're in the process now of cleaning up our office and getting things ready for next year. The lady that just came up here took all the thunder I was going to say for Janice, because it's exactly what we were told today, is that it's the fee payers that are going to be eliminated from our dues. Everybody says it's a lot of people, but I've never seen that many people that are fee payers. So it'll be interesting to see how it affects our union and our dues. Anyway, as far as everything else goes, we're working on, as I said before, getting our office ready for the next year and getting ready to go into negotiations with the 2 districts that we're currently involved with.
Okay.
That's everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
4.4, report by Seminardino School Police Officers Association, none. 4.5, comments by board members. Do we have it? Do we want to start with Dr. Wyatt?
And I do.
Yes, and so we can come down from there.
Well, thank you, Madam President. No, just really brief for me today. Again, that was a great presentation by our counseling folks and our team, so thank you again to Dr. Perez and her team. Had a wonderful opportunity today to attend a social and educational justice symposium at University of Redlands, and one of the highlights that was there today was, again, a student mariachi band. And I know Dr. Flores has been huge on wanting to have that, similar type program for our district, and I just want to continue to support that and would love to see a similar program here in San Bernardino School, in the San Bernardino State Unified School District. And we already have a number of phenomenal music programs and programs that are absolutely at the top level of performance, as we've seen. And I'm quite sure if we started such a program as that, we would see the same outcomes and results. So that's it for me.
Okay. Dr. Flores?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Just to follow up with Dr. Wyatt, Dr. Wilkemore, perhaps you could give us a status report of where we're at with the mariachi support in terms of funding them and so forth. I think that, who does that fall under?
It's under.
VAPA?
Yes, it's under VAPA, under Dr.
They're
Mitchell.
under VAPA.
We'll
okay.
get something out to you.
Okay, great. So I have 3 requests, and I also want to thank the counseling people, representatives, and you, Dr. Perez, for the presentation. It's a big job. It's a huge job, and we're here to support everyone as much as we can. So the 3 requests are, 1, I still would like the annual summary of the law firms of money spent by department and the totals. And I do believe that we're going to get that, I think, next board meeting. Okay, great. Secondly, I also had requested an annual report on the analysis of all charter schools based on the 16 criteria. Where are we at with that? I noticed that I believe the amount of money that goes to charter schools from our budget, is this correct, Dr. Volkmer, 44 million? Or, oh, 42 million? So I would like to know the breakdown of how much money each of the charter schools get and how many of them there are, and et cetera. So I think we need to know that. Thirdly, a long time ago, I had asked for a report on workers' comp. I know that we're outsourcing it, but I had requested, I wanted to know the number of open cases we still have, how many cases are in litigation, what's the time frame of the open cases in terms of, how many years have they been open, how many have we resolved, and also, given the pending, how many are pending and by what category and what type? In other words, are they classified? Are they certificated? Where are we in terms of that? And I hope that we are evaluating the company that we outsource this to. And so I would like to know, I think we need to know that and how much the cost is for all of that. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Hill, do you have any comments?
Just a couple. One, I want to let you know it was great participating in the Highland 4th of July Parade. and having the honor of seeing Dion Clark, principal of Sangagonia, being the parade marshal. Lots of people were out, lots of our students were out, and just want to personally thank Chief Polino, Ms. Rogers. We did have a great time,
Yes,
and
we did.
especially the explorers. They were there and they walked the whole route. So we really appreciate that. My only other thing is we need to, and I heard it tonight quite a bit, but if we're gonna preach it, we better practice it, and that's accountability. And accountability for everybody, with the custodians keeping these floors clean, to, as superintendent, making sure the district is managed appropriately, to board members, making commitments and doing the things we need to do. So my suggestion is this year we all practice accountability. And that's not for some people, it's for all of us. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. And then Ms. Rogers?
Thank you. I just want to say just a couple things. One, I was very, very excited to be able to go up to Washington and do the Schools to Watch for Golden Valley. It was exciting. I was in the elevator, and one person had asked where I was from, and when I mentioned, the California area, they said, "You guys are always winning." But that's great. That's a great thing to hear, because even now, what I heard is that we also can qualify for a district to watch. So hopefully, as we work on all of these things that we're chiming away to do, it is our students that, I always tell the students are teachers, but, our students are there in the classrooms in order to try to make it happen for everything that takes place in the district. So we always want to give them those shout outs. And then finally, I know Abigail reminded again, but we want to officially go on record again and make sure that we're clear on during the summer months, since it hadn't been mentioned a while back, about reversing the order of our closed session just during the summer months when it's lean, to see how that works. We want to start that upcoming in our next meeting. So Mike and Mr. Tillman, before you all, or Mr. Gallo and Mr. Tillman came in, we did kind of get a consensus on that for our next upcoming meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Gallo?
Well, at least we'll get one of these meetings in for this summer, right? That'll work just fine. I just want to give a shout out to Rachel and the special education group that just finished their summer internship program for this year. Went from June 11th to July 6th, and we had 4 teachers participating and over 25 students that were engaged. As you remember last year, we only had I want to say 7 or 8 students participate, and so it's more this year, and they got a wider experience band than they did as well. And we had a nice celebration on Friday, the 6th, I think it was, and was a great time. They did things ranging from going out to local businesses, to our theater to see how it worked, and the behind-the-scenes operations of that, to working at our local schools, not only in cleanup, but also in prepping for the parent, kind of new parent introduction packages, where they put together had an assembly line going and doing all of the Xeroxing and work and everything. They even served food at Indian Springs High School for their summer school program, which was, hundreds of kids. And they did all of the serving, including all of the cleanup, operating some of the, they wouldn't let me touch it. It was the dishwashing equipment and everything. So yeah, they're pretty good. They shouldn't let me. I know I'm not checked out on it. But it was really great to see these students actually get some hands-on work experience, working in teams. And it really was heartening for these kids. And I know it bolstered their confidence, and that they can achieve more and actually have a vision and plan for the rest of their life. So I just want to thank Dr. Menadas for that program, and the special education department, and the teachers as well for, giving up their summer basically for doing this program. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tillman?
Yeah, I heard you say you had discussion about doing closed session first. The only caveat I would have is to make sure that we maintain the 7 o'clock public comment.
Right, right.
And
And then
I'm assuming we're only doing it during the summer because,
only in the summertime.
yeah, because I don't, and I say that only to say that means that we're not going to have parents and students agendized early and have them waiting while we're.
No, no, so then I would
closed
make
session.
sure that by 7 o'clock, we would do public comments if it doesn't get, yeah.
All right,
So-
thank you.
All right. Oh, and my comment is that how, I don't know how people were dealing with the heat. It was incredible these past few days. And the energy loss, and a lot of homes were out of electricity, and then some families didn't get their electricity until 3 in the morning. Can you imagine the how they were dealing with that? And just sending that, for them to enjoy as much as they can with all this heat. And that's basically it. Okay, so then we'll go ahead and move along. Let's go to 4.6, comments by superintendent and staff members.
Thank you, President Medina. Just a couple things that have been going on over the summer and a couple things that are coming up real quickly. I'm often asked as an educator, do you get the whole summer off? It's actually a very busy time for us. We have lots of big types of staff development. So just a couple things that have gone on. We did have our management conference back on June 18th and 19th. It was a very successful event centered around the concept of strategic abandonment. We're looking at really narrowing focus, channeling energy, and finding out, what are the things that we're doing that really are not having that return on investment that we want, and let's get rid of them. And then there's some things that are non-negotiable that we have to do, and then some things that we can improve on. And so our entire management team went through that process. Lindsey Gunn came out and expertly, as he always does, facilitated it for us, and we'll be following up at our quarterly strategic meeting to develop a document that'll fall in those 3 areas. So we're excited to share that with the board. Right on the heels of our management conference, we had our site leaders meeting on June 20, 21, and 22. That was 3 days with all of our site leaders, about 175 people. It was very, very positive. We focused deeply on instructional supervision and how to make a difference in individual classrooms. And it was highlighted by a session with Dr. Richard Elmore, which you probably know is the person who really has brought expertise to our district in the form of instructional rounds. And he will actually be working with the district throughout the year, so that was very exciting. And then just a week or two ago, we actually hosted the Arrowhead United Way annual breakfast at the Professional Development Center. It was a great activity. We were really looking, both Ms. Rogers and I are on the board of directors for Arrowhead United Way, and we were kind of struggling with where we were going to have it, and then it kind of dawned on us we can have it at the PDC. And it was a very, very nice event. The district was recognized, and Mrs. Medina, I don't know if you want to pass that around, but we did receive a plaque for having the top education campaign, and then we got a few resolutions from cities and legislators. So it's been a busy summer. A couple things that are coming up that we want to call to your attention. Number one, you received from Karen, I believe today, a survey that is actually from Gary Yee on Dr. Marsden's communication with the board. Dr. Marsden and I talked today, and he'd asked that you fill that out and get it back to Dr. Yee prior to your meeting next Tuesday. And just to remind you that you do have a meeting on superintendent's evaluation next Tuesday evening at 5:30 at the PDC. So if you would get that survey filled out and back to Dr. Yee, he's going to be using that information at your meeting next Tuesday. And then finally, the Martinez family, of course, you know that Jonathan Martinez was a student that we lost in the tragic shooting at North Park Elementary School, and his family has asked us to help with his memory by doing something related to the Williams syndrome. And so you have at your table or at your seats a fun activity that's happening just this Thursday from 10 to 1 at Jones Elementary School. We'll be having the Williams Syndrome Fun Fair. It's got all kinds of fun activities, community agencies that are going to be there to support. So if you can make it out, we'd love to have you, love to see you there. And that's all my comments. Thank you.
For the next time that we do this, hopefully we do this annually, can you make sure that his name is on the flyer? That way it's in recognition of him in the future. That way I know that the Williams syndrome name is there, but we want to make sure that maybe this could be our own districts. This is what we call it.
We'll double check with the family, Mrs.
Okay,
Medina,
if
just
they
to make
want
sure
to.
that's
If they
what
would
they
like to.
want, but we'd be happy to do that if they're okay with it.
if
Thank
they're
you.
okay. Thank you. Okay, great. And then we're going to go to consent calendar.
So moved.
Are there any items to be pulled? No items to be pulled, okay. Okay, then, any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. Let's go to 6.0. Action items, 6.1, Personnel Report Number 1, dated July 10th, 2018. Dr. Wiseman? As presented, okay.
So moved.
Is there any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. 6.2, Seminardino Unified School District Resolution for exemption to the separation from service requirement pursuant to Section 2421 4.5 or 26812 of the Education Code. Martha Servin.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Other than she was an amazing principal, and I hope she enjoys her retirement. Yeah, so we can bring her back, and she can still help us through her retirement years. Let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. 7.0, Summary of the Board Requests.
Thank you, President Medina. So we do have a fairly lengthy list. I'll try to go through them as quickly as possible in terms of our follow-ups based on our meeting this evening. Closed session will be placed at the front of the agenda, for first part of the agenda, for our next meeting. And I'm assuming by summer months you mean when students aren't in session?
Right.
Is that?
Yes.
So then in August, I don't remember when the August meeting is, but we would go back to having closed session late. Okay.
Was it one in August?
We'll do it.
One in
We'll do it
August.
next year if that's the board's desire. Yeah, whenever students aren't in session.
Right.
Okay. And we'll time it out so that depending upon how much we have on the agenda, we'll be able to
Yes.
communicate with the public when to be here. And we'll still make sure that public comment is scheduled for 7 o'clock. We're going to get you some information on the percentage of our seniors that have been through our career interest program, and we'll let you know what that program is called and kind of how it operates, what percentage of students have been through that, as well as how many students have been through a FAFSA type of workshop designed to get them to do FAFSA. As you know, board, everybody who does that work is off on vacation, or at least most people are off on vacation. So it may take us a little bit of time to get you that information, but we will get it for you. We're going to double check on Moreno Valley's program called, known as Teachers as Counselors, or BAR perhaps. We'll make sure we do some exploration in there. We're going to consider Dr. Hill's idea of all-day counseling, as well as how to roll out the new vision to our students. So how do we communicate to our students that the framework of counseling is going to change? And then the next thing that I had is the board. I took it that you wanted a quarterly report in our ongoing initiatives under the counseling services, which, based on Mr. Tillman's comment, would be based on particular data. So what are the needles you're trying to move? What are the metrics you're going to focus on, and what's happening in relation to those metrics? So we're happy to do that. We'll get information back to you on counseling services and career inventory services for our students that are SH transition students. We'll explore the possibility of having a central number where people can report student needs, much like Mrs. Capozio shared with us earlier this evening, how we might build that into some type of central number that people can use. But we'll also reinforce that we are all available whenever those needs arise as well. We'll get you a status on the district's mariachi band, a breakdown of our summary of legal costs, annual legal costs, breakdown of the money that each charter costs us and where they're at in terms of their annual progress, and then a report on workers' comp in terms of the number of open cases, litigation, how many are pending, et cetera, and an assessment of how the third-party intervention is working for us. And that's all I had written down. Hope I didn't miss anything.
All right. Mr. Gallo?
Yeah, just making sure that we don't include students from other districts in that charter school, because that's not the right.
Correct.
Just so we.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Then let's go ahead and move forward. 8.0. Oh, wait, but that was an action item. Do we need to approve that one? Yes. Oh, 7.0, you're right. Okay, then 8.0, closed session, we will be reporting out.
Yes.
And we'll see you in a bit. So we're back from closed session, and here are the items. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the appointment of the following employee: Lindsay Doizen, Tasha, Director of Elementary Instruction, Instruction, effective date, work year, and salary to be determined, funding 031.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. Congratulations, Tasha. Requester, Special Education Director, approve or Assistant Superintendent Continuous Improvement, SS-17-18-09. Be resolved that the Board of Education approves the settlement authority number SS-17-18-09 in the amount of $20,800. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education authorizes Deborah Love, Purchasing Director, to sign any related documents.
So moved.
Okay, any discussion? Not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. Special Education Director, Assistant Superintendent, Continuous Improvement, SS-17-18-08. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the settlement authority SS-17-18-08 in the amount of $16,400. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education authorizes Deborah Love, Purchasing Director, to sign any related documents.
So moved.
Okay, any discussion? Let's call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. Be it resolved that the Board of Education accepts the notice of recommendation for disciplinary action and statement of charges to dismiss the following classified employee from his or her employment with the district, HR Class 17-18-12. Okay, any discussion? Not, call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. Be resolved that the Board of Education accepts the notice of recommendation for disciplinary action and statement of charges to dismiss the following classified employee from his or her employment with the district, HR Class 17-18-11. I need a motion. Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, I'm calling for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. All right, thank you, everyone. Good evening, and we've done at a little shy of 8:30. Thank you.